Afternoon everybody. Just want to look at the pound dollar and something that developed this morning while I was looking at the trades. Not an awful lot happening today. This morning has been very quiet. Trades setting up, trades voiding, price not doing an awful lot for a long time. But a couple of things worth noting that I came across. First thing that happened was, as we can see, the white dotted line there, that's where I came to the charts first thing in the morning, that's 6 AM. Red line is my short trigger, blue line is my long trigger. So they're my triggers I'm looking for my entries. First thing that set up was a pullback entry through the short trigger with the entry below there, below that first blue arrow. First trade of the morning was a pullback that's set up underneath the first blue arrow there. It's gone through the red line, the short trigger, created the pullback on the first bar not to create a new bar low, which was there, so entry would have been there. The void level for that trade would have been the previous swing high prior to the trade setting up, which was all the way up there. That was my previous swing high. As we can see, price carried on moving up back towards the long trigger level, voided the trade going through the void mark that I highlighted, and then it set up a full bias change through the long trigger level. You can see the low, lower high, higher low, higher high set up. So trade was pending there above that line. That was the entry above there, with the stop all the way down here. And I saw the stop was well below the short trigger level. Was the first thing I noticed, and it was quite. It looks quite away. It was only about 40 points away. The stops. It wasn't a massive stop, but in relation to the trigger levels, it was quite a distance. So if I just scroll through the charts, just so we can see exactly what happened. We'll go back a little bit further. Trade eventually triggered for me up here at 46.50. So trade triggered on that bar, and then literally straight away started to move back down. So I started marking off the swing highs and swing lows, and highlighted that an alternate bias change to the short side had developed there. But at that point, there was a long trade on, so there was nothing further for me to do really at that point. But what started happening, price, as you can see, price then moved back below the short trigger level at that point in the chart, which was there. Now I already had the long trigger on with the entry above there and the stop below that area there. So there's a short trade, because of where the stop was on the long trade, well down below the short trigger. A short trade is also set up at the same time. Now I already had an alternate bias change up here, which I highlighted. So I was looking for a pullback entry. So the pullback developed for me there. What I did based off of this was, once that trade would have triggered, would be to, or once that trade set up, sorry, would be to move the stop loss for the long trade to the entry level for this short trade. That's what I decided to do, just so I didn't have two trades open at the same time. So as the price eventually, the yellow dotted line you see there, that was because it was a pullback entry, that was the void area, that was the last swing high prior to the pullback setting up. So that was the area where the trade would have voided, which it subsequently did. So I didn't need to worry too much then about that short entry. The short entry was cancelled. I decided to move the stop loss back to its original position. Whether I should have done that, I'm not 100% sure. But I made a decision to move the stop back to its original level. So as you can see there, that price eventually started moving in my favour. Managed to get the first scalper target out of it there. At this point, the stop loss was moved to 50%, which was around that level. Stop loss was moved to that area once the first scalper target had been hit. Coming into the 10 o'clock with the new trigger levels at 10 o'clock. I'm still in the long trade, so there's nothing further for me to do at this point. Because it's non-farm payroll days, 10 o'clock is the cut-off time that is used for new trade setup. So if not already in a trade by 10 o'clock on non-farm payroll day, then any new trades, I won't be looking for any new trade setups. But as I was in a trade, it was a case of just managing this position that was open. Ultimately moved all the way down. It's moved down, and it would have gone through the short trigger level. But like I said, as I was not looking for any new trades while in a trade already, it was just a case of that trade. Unfortunately, was stopped out for a half loss on the 2 scalp tags and a full loss on the swing trade. So it's approaching 1:30 now, coming towards the time when I'm going to start looking for new trades. Nothing really for me to do until the new 2 o'clock trigger levels, to be honest. So there'll be no new trade setups there, at which point I'll look at the ATR and see where the ATR is for the day. It may be a case of that the day is pretty much done now, and there's nothing more for me to do with it being a Friday afternoon. But I will assess that as and when the time arrives. So that's how the pound has unfolded for me this morning. Just that one interesting point with the short trade setting up within the long trade. Just because of the narrow range of the completed 4-hour bar for the trigger levels. But that was about it really. Quite an uneventful morning, if I'm being honest with you. So nothing further sets up. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Weather's fantastic here in the UK, so have a great weekend. And hopefully we'll get a bit of a better week next week. Alright guys, thanks for watching again. Bye bye.